Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to speak to you about British history. Before speaking about the history itself, I'd like to just clarify one point. There's often a lot of confusion when talking about the names that are used to refer to the UK, to Britain, etc. For example, when you watch my country compete in the World Cup, whilst you watch us playing football, then you'll see that the team is referred to as England. Then if you watch the Olympics, you'll see Team GB taking part. So this is Great Britain. Then on the international stage, when talking about international relations, you'll always hear my country referred to as the United Kingdom. Then in geography, you'll invariably hear the term British Isles being bandied about. And in day-to-day speech, you can hear adjectives such as English or British being used. So in order to avoid confusion myself, there is one trick that I use, which I try to bear in mind, and that is that I try to remember what it says on my passport. On a British passport, at the top, it says the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So for me, that helps me to remember which name refers to what exactly. You can also remember the fact that the British Isles is made up of two countries, and that is the UK, the capital of which is, of course, London, and the Republic of Ireland, whose capital is Dublin. But when did the UK come into being? At which point in history did countries like England, Scotland and Wales come together into one union? This is a question which is especially relevant nowadays, given the fact that there have been many heated discussions recently on the possibility of Scottish independence. Well, we would have to go back roughly 5 centuries in order to find the answer. It was in 1536 that Wales was annexed to the Kingdom of England. Then Scotland joined in 1707, but the union itself was not created until the year 1801. It was in this year that Ireland was annexed, and it was this time that the term United Kingdom was first used. The flag is, of course, the Union flag, or the Union Jack, as it is sometimes referred to. It is made up of 3 different flags laid one on top of the other. There is the English flag, which is the flag of St. George, the red cross on the white background. There is the former flag of Ireland, and then there is the Scottish flag, which is a blue background with the cross of St. Andrew. Later, in 1921, Ireland gained its independence, of course, so although the Irish flag was used to make the Union Jack, it is, of course, no longer part of this union. The flag has remained roughly unchanged since its original setup. Now, if you look at the map, you can see that Britain is clearly a part of Europe. But as we know from Britain's history and Britain's politics, the UK has always stood aloof from its continental neighbours. This is true now more than ever, because we can see that there are a great many demands for the UK to break away from the European Union. We just have to think of UKIP, the UK Independence Party, or the fact that the current Prime Minister, David Cameron, has promised a referendum on EU membership if he is re-elected at the next general election. But if we look back at history, then we can see that Britain has always been a part of Europe. And indeed, we can even go back 2,000 years for proof of this. Back in the times of the ancient Roman Empire, England was part of this empire, which stretched from Italy up to the Hadrian's Wall. After the Romans, Germanic tribes invaded, as they did in many other parts of Europe. These tribes were, for example, the Angles, the Saxons, or the Jutes, who came to settle in the British Isles. And indeed, the Angles gave the name to England, and this is where the name comes from. Then in the 9th century, the Vikings arrived in the British Isles, and following this, a key moment in our history took place in 1066. It was in this year that the Normans invaded. One of the most well-known events in British history was the Battle of Hastings, when the Normans sealed their victory. For the 200 or 300 years following 1066, the rulers of England also ruled over large swathes of France. This was the case up until the 100 Years' War. The 100 Years' War was a long and drawn-out bloody conflict between England and France. England was fighting to defend its territories from the French. And indeed, for many decades it seemed that France would be doomed to failure, that the French would never win back the lands which they claimed were theirs. Or at least this was the case up until the arrival of Joan of Arc. When she came onto the scene, France was able to turn its fortune around. As we all know, Joan of Arc was a young girl who valiantly led the French in battle, winning back land for the French. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've given you a quick overview of a few centuries of history. Later on in my next speech, I'll continue on the same topic, but I'll start speaking about the colonial era, and then I'll move on to the centuries following that. Thank you.